to WNHH Radio's Dateline New Haven. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines and the stories that make New Haven tick. Mayor Toni Harp makes New Haven tick morning and night. She's here in the WNHH studio for her weekly Mayor Monday checkup on what she and we are up to in the Elm City. If you're watching on Facebook Live, folks, feel free to put in questions. We had a lot last week. And welcome, Mayor Harp. Great to see you on this beautiful day.
It's a gorgeous day. Thank you, Paul. It's great to be here.
And you want to thank Gateway Community College and Bertram Moses PC for providing financial support for today's program. Mayor Harp, the week has just started. You've already made history.
How's that?
You were present at some history making in the last hour. I saw Barkeisha Ricks was Facebook Living the video of it.
Church Street South is coming down.
50 years after we built a 301-unit subsidized housing complex across from Union Station, Church Street South, with a lot of high hopes. I think it was co-op one day. I'm not sure.
I think it was. Yeah. When I first came here, I think it had been up for a few years, and the dean of the architecture school had actually been the one his company had designed and built that. And, you know, it got all kinds of awards everywhere.
It's amazing because I always looked at that thing, I said, concrete jungle. But, you know, people who lived there really loved it.
They really did.
But you also had a lot of periods where things didn't go great there. And as we know, it all kind of fell apart. It was years of deferred maintenance. It got to be unhealthy. And you guys worked really hard to find new homes for 288 families. No easy trick.
Wasn't easy.
I kind of felt like I was reading about worldwide refugee crises. We kind of had our own here, but everybody got places, and now you're knocking. So this morning you were there knocking it down. Now I wasn't there. I know what Mayor John DeStefano, your predecessor, would do. Not to make comparisons, but he would have been the boy up in the bulldozer, pulling the first lever to knock something down and saying, "Wow, I'm getting to play with buildings." Were you up there knocking buildings down?
No, I was watching though.
I would have been where you were.
A good distance. You know, they have a lot of water going. I mean,
I would have
really
been fine with a telescope. Yeah. So what was it like? Like, how'd you feel? Did it feel like history, or?
It felt like history. You know, I kept remembering what it looked like when I first came here to New Haven, and that, you know, I was reflecting on the fact that it took a long time for us to get people out, and it was actually the Housing Authority that did it. Because people were really tied to that place in spite of the fact
that... Well, the last person, Mrs. Robinson, I visited her before she left, and everything's falling down around her. You're hearing the buildings come down. I said, "You know you're going to have to go, right?" She goes, "Yeah, I know I'm going to have to go. I just really don't want to leave." And she said, "I'm not really scared when I'm here, but when I'm left, people are going into all the next door apartments and stealing the pipes, and my place gets flooded." And then finally she did actually and then they would show her, people went out of their way to make her happy. So they showed her apartment. She said, "I don't want to be in any kind of developments that are too more near the woods. The woods scare me." So they didn't show her anything in Brookside where there are apartments. So then she said, "I want to be in like Farnham Courts or Monterey." They said, okay, and they found her places there, but said, "But I want to be on the first floor, and I don't like elevators." And, you know, I spoke to Shanae Drawn, and people were very patient. They kind of felt like we've disrupted everybody's life, and we're just going to do it in a way everybody gets a place they want. So in the end, Mrs. Robinson did have to leave because of flooding. They finally got her pipes, the pipe leading into hers. And so she had to stay temporarily in a motel, which isn't great. But I think the Housing Authority did a very good job. And it took a long time because the other thing is that there aren't a lot of 3 to 4 unit apartments, and you know, there are no landlords to take it. So you got them the places.
No, and I think that, you know, they really should be commended, and I'm happy that the people, they worked really hard to make sure they were in much, much better places. And I believe almost everyone is happy, at least for the time being.
So what else were you thinking today?
Well, you know, I was thinking that our system works. That when we got involved, when the City of New Haven got involved, when LCI and when...
That's your Livable City
and
initiative.
Our building official got involved, that's when we were able to really understand the gravity of the situation.
And we got to give credit to Legal Aid.
Absolutely. They have done really yeoman's work.
But as soon as you became mayor, Mayor Harp, you were down in Washington saying to HUD, Housing Urban Development, which paid all the rents, $3 million a year.
Right.
How can you keep approving this place?
How
can you keep things in good shape? How can you have people living here?
And it was so interesting. I call it the government stare because I've seen it in other federal government agencies. We sent pictures around. They all kind of looked at the pictures and then they moved them on. But it was like a stare, and it's almost they absolutely shut themselves off from it. And the person who responded was the newest person on staff, was like the administrative assistant.
Really?
And I guess I said to myself, well, he hasn't learned that you don't respond to these things.
They took notice when there were lawsuits and a lot of bad press for what they
Yes.
did. My favorite part is we met a tenant, because we always wondered, how do they get these inspections from HUD? Because LCI for years in the city was saying this is unlivable.
Mm-hmm.
They'd get 30 out of 100. But at HUD, they get like 80 out of 100, 90 out of 100. And we met a tenant who said, I have the only apartment in good shape here, and they always come to my place. And I said to them, will you please go down the hall this time? You always come to my place to inspect how things are here. Do you think that was corruption or laziness or inherent? Because they subcontract groups to do the inspections. How did that happen, do you think?
I don't think it's corruption. I do think it's probably sort of like doing what's easy.
Mm-hmm. That's true, especially when it's hard to house people. Conditions are bad for poor people. HUD's got a lot of headaches.
Right.
Adi Nunez says hello. Hajibe Kacharabash, Lily Alder says hello. Good morning,
Wow.
everybody. Thanks for listening. So that's a big change in the landscape. Ever since I've been in New Haven, there have been debates about what to do with Church Street South.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people felt that housing across from the train station, the first thing you see should be safe and upscale, because that's prime real estate. Other people said the neighborhood needs to preserve low-income housing, especially for larger families. And when the people, Northland bought Church Street South
Mm-hmm.
before he became mayor. And they bought it with the promise they were going to tear it down and build something market rate, and maybe also do the Coliseum. Then the neighborhood said, and this was again right before he became mayor, no, we want to have at least 30% affordable housing there. And meaning if you're going to change it to 1,000 units, that preserves the full number of affordable housing we used to have. So then Northland that owns it felt like we were stuck here having to keep patching the roof. We kept thinking we were going to tear it down. Other people felt they weren't responsible. In any case, you worked with them, and now you're working with them to try to build something new there once it comes down. Are we still looking 900 to 1,000 units with 30% affordable?
I think that's the plan that the city's looking at with Northland. So I do think that is the plan. We've applied, though, to HUD twice for choice neighborhood grants.
$30 million grant for that in Wolf Apartments.
And we have not received it. I went back to HUD and said, okay, now that we recognize there is a problem, I'm hoping you can help us pull together the resources for the affordable housing for this project. And, again, they gave me kind of the bureaucratic stare.
You got
but
the stare again. First, you got the stare when you showed them the Polaroids. Not really Polaroids. And then you got the stare when you're saying, where's my $30 million?
Well, and they said, they did say more than just stare. They did say that they would try to help out. And, honestly, I went there maybe, 2.5 years ago, and we've applied for these grants and we haven't gotten any of them. And our fear is that these grants will go away under the Trump administration. And
Republican Congress.
it was my sense that there was a commitment. I think that they felt, especially since I'd gone and I showed them the problem, they didn't do anything about it, that I do believe that some of them felt like they ought to do something. But then with the administrations changing, I'm going to be going back sometime this summer to HUD to have another conversation with them. So we'll see how it goes and what kind of look I'll get if they'll be
what
open
if
and
you stared
receptive. Or I get another stare.
Could you stare back? Like, if you staring contests when you were a
Yeah.
kid? Were you any good at those?
I was pretty good, yeah.
I wasn't good. I was
Oh, you weren't
cracking up
good?
pretty fast, yeah.
Really? Ah.
So you've asked for a third time for this $30 million choice grant.
Yeah.
What happens if we don't get it?
Well, I think it makes it harder then to pay for the subsidized housing.
Is it possible that we could get money for other subsidized housing nearby and then give Northland their wish that they can then just build at market rate with private financing? Or is it too important a symbolic property? You know how the Q House was such a symbolic property? When people said, well, you have other youth programs nearby. It was a central place that meant so much to that community that you needed to put it there. The politics of the situation, the public feeling was that we need to have the Q House there. Is there a similar public feeling that there needs to be affordable housing at Church Street South? Because I remember Henry Fernandez, when he was economic development director, he tried to get the neighbor to support a plan where they did the same number of units nearby, but then let someone build market rate there, and it didn't fly.
I mean, I think the problem that we have, and I think everyone in New Haven knows that we are geographically small. I don't
Yeah.
think people will believe that we'll get that replacement housing if it's not there. And the fact that it is close to the railroad station and this whole transit-oriented development initiatives that we see across the state, that it's prime property, and to not allow poor people access to property that they had before, it is troubling. And I think that's another reason why it's going to be hard to entertain a program for those 18 acres, 13 acres, that doesn't have affordable housing on it.
And people have been talking about what other cities are doing about affordable housing. So in Washington, what they're doing is, instead of getting, when people want to build market rate housing, so they don't need subsidies, but the government wants them to put in the public affordable, they'll often get subsidies the way we do, like Randy Salvatore's project in Hills South.
Mm-hmm.
Am I calling it right, downtown South? They Hilda downtown. So he's building the market rate, and you help them get state subsidies, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, for the others. What Washington does is they have, in these mixed unit developments, they have the developer charge so much extra for the market rate that subsidizes the lower
that's an
income.
interesting thought.
And they're doing two buildings on the same property, which still then ghettoizes again, but it does. And Matthew Neverson, your economic development person, has mentioned that idea. That's sort of where the debate's going now. So I wonder whether Northland can believe they could add another 25% surcharge to those rents to subsidize affordable housing.
Well, for some would believe that perhaps what they've built in is already that, because all the rents in New Haven are extraordinarily high.
Right. So what's the profit margin is the question, right?
And the profit margin. And so our folks would be able to run those numbers and to say that we do that. I mean, another thought is to take some of that property ourselves, to own it in some kind of way, pay for it, and have that help to reduce the costs and make it permanently subsidized.
So would you have an easier time finding money for subsidized housing if you got the property? Do you think Glendower, the development arm of Housing Authority, would be able to build there?
Well, I wouldn't want all of the property, but at least some of it. I think having eliminated one of the costs, and the cost is the land, and owning the land in perpetuity means that those apartments would be subsidized in perpetuity.
Just so I understand, this is a very interesting idea. So one idea is that what you're trying to do, get the federal government to give some subsidies so it could be mixed income. The second Washington idea is they charge so much for rent for the market rate, they subsidize the other. So it sounds like your idea is that you take part of that land and have it be city owned and have some kind of government built subsidized housing there.
Well, you can even have the private sector build it, but they just don't own the land.
Oh.
Do you see what I'm saying?
So they don't have to buy the land to make up that cost?
Right.
So you can give them a 99-year lease?
You could give them a lease for 30 years. I got this idea in China, believe it or not.
Tell me about that.
That's what they do. Nobody owns land in China the way that they own land here. And they give them, the government owns the land, they give them a 30-year lease. They can make their money. What I would suggest is that it could be longer so that the property would provide affordable housing. And then after the lease is over, then it could be, others could apply for it. And maybe they would even do more affordable than is existing.
That's so interesting.
That's pretty much what we saw them do in China. I thought it was pretty interesting.
That is pretty interesting. So
sort of like turns what we do upside down.
So you would have to take some of that by eminent domain, or would Northland just cough it up as part of the deal to help you give them permission to build? I mean, they're getting what they want.
It's just an idea right now.
It's an interesting. I think it's a very interesting idea.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's so interesting that you brought that back from China and see how you can apply it in a capitalist economy.
Right.
Which they are partly a capitalist economy.
They are partly.
Yeah. But not completely.
But yeah, because they own the land.
Yeah. And we own Mayor Monday here on WNHH FM, your home for community radio, 103.5 FM, live streamed at newhavenindependent.org. And we're running down what's going on in New Haven with Mayor Tony Harp. What's going on in New Haven throughout the country is a lot of talk about families being taken apart by immigration.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a lot happening last week nationally where there was a controversy over the president's new policy of separating children and parents at the border. More than 2,000 families separated that way. He claimed with the new order that's going to stop, but a lot of people are pointing out you still have those other kids to deal with, and people are separated in other ways, like right now in New Haven. Nelson Pinos has been spending 200 days in the First and Summerfield Church for sanctuary, and he is not with his kids, although he sees them sometimes. And I think if you're not watching this on Facebook Live, you're watching Markeisha Live is Facebook Living a press conference that Nelson Pinos is having right now. He just got a setback in his efforts to stay here. So we don't know how long. 200 days is a long time. I think that's our longest sanctuary church. The other ones happen pretty quickly. Do we have any of the families staying here? It just occurred to me.
Not to my knowledge.
Governor Malloy, either last night or this morning, held out an offer to the federal government to help find some places for families with agencies here, or for some of the kids who have no place.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts on what happened over the past week?
You know, I can't imagine being a parent and having my children taken from me, and then having no way of knowing what happened to them. I can't imagine. I think it's the most cruel and inhumane thing that a government can do to another human being and to a family. It's just unthinkable to me that our country, that America, did this to people because they wanted to be free. It just breaks my heart.
You know, it's interesting to me that while we were talking all about that nationally last week, there was this theme I picked up on our graduations. By the way, did you survive graduation week?
Yeah, I went to Sound. It was so nice. It was lovely. And it makes you know that we can work it out.
In the same day, there were two graduations where my reporters went.
Mm-hmm.
This immigration theme really surfaced, and I have to read the names here. At Hill House, my reporter met Nydia Tuback. She'd been here only 1 year. She came from, I forget which country. She barely spoke English. She had a teacher who was a mentor. She did really well, and she graduated, and and is going to be on her way.
Mm-hmm.
And the same night at High School in the Community, Paula Morales, she's been here 4 years, and she also had to learn to speak the language. She did so well that she graduated early and started taking classes at UNH and gave the speech at graduation.
Oh, how nice.
To me, that was a real contrast to the way we think about immigration a lot in this country.
Well, for whatever reason, the powers that be have demonized immigrants. And I remember a time when we thought that was our absolute strength as a country. And what has happened that we are demonizing these people that come, they add value to our city, to our state, and really to our country. And now we're demonizing them. And years ago, I'm old enough to remember when we thought that was our strength, and that is what made America the great nation that we all thought it was.
I think New Haven's gotten a lot stronger with all the immigrants who've come to our city.
Oh, absolutely.
And last week, the candidate you've backed for Attorney General, Democratic nomination, the primary, William Tong, was here at First and Summerfield for a rally the same day as the Trump decision. Spoke about his father was an undocumented immigrant.
Mm.
There was a Republican president, Richard Nixon, and his father started a business outside Hartford. And he wrote to Richard Nixon when he was going to be deported, and they let him stay as a hard-working American. He said there was Republicans supported immigration. There was a Republican president who supported that, and he talked about how how times have changed.
Well, when I was in the Senate, we were having, again, a lot of these immigration discussions. We were trying to decide whether or not to make driver's license available to people without documents. And I'll never forget Senator Eileen Daly talked about how her family hid uncles in the third floor of their house in right outside of, I think, in Dorchester, Boston, that neighborhood.
Dorchester.
Okay.
I think it's spelled like that.
And the interesting thing is that when it was Irish immigration, no one seemed to have a problem with it. But
the Irish got treated pretty bad. No
Well,
Jews or Irish or no dog Irish allowed, all those signs.
well, and
But you're right, the immigration rules weren't
the
the same.
rules weren't like they are today. And she got up there and she said that's why we're strong, because of my relatives who came here. Not all of them with documents, and some of them we had to hide for a time. And I think we just forget that.
The tonight at the Board of Alders, there's going to be a special meeting about whether to override a veto from Mayor Tony Harp. This wasn't a veto of the budget. This was something they passed a week later that said that all money that comes in, any revenue unexpected for the upcoming fiscal year, must be used to offset the 11% tax increase we have, property tax increase. And I know we also have what's looking like a deficit. So is this going to tie your hands if you're overridden? Well, first let me ask you why you vetoed it.
I vetoed it because it was too broad. Almost any money that would come in for whatever reason would have to go to taxpayers. We don't have a real mechanism to get it to taxpayers when it comes in. And oftentimes, I had department heads that said, well, what if I got a grant? What if there were other dollars that came in that were for
Educational cost sharing that goes to schools.
were for a specific reason, and it now has to go to taxpayers. So it was written too broadly. I understand what they were trying to do, and it just doesn't work. So my guess is they have the votes. They'll probably override it, but it's still unworkable. I had a conversation.
So you might have to break the law. You either have to break what they passed to break the law if you get money that has... No, seriously, if you have money that has strings attached, what do you do?
Well, I've been told that one of the things that they will try to do is to make clear what their legislative intent was. And that's something...
We couldn't figure it out. We didn't write an article the first night it passed because we couldn't figure out the legislative intent. We did do an article finally where we went back to them and forced them to tell us what they meant, which money.
Well, I hope it's the same thing they told me.
Probably not. I think they like you better. Jake Newell writes in, good day to you both. But, I do think that I think there was a frustration in the alders because they did not cut the tax rate that you proposed, which was a surprise because people are so upset about the tax increase.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So now they felt they needed to take some action that said we're looking after taxes. It has become sort of a rallying cry, like people who are upset the taxes went up. It's hard because you can't say, well, I'll cut this, or do you want to cut that? Do you want fewer cops rather than having this tax money? But Jake Newell says, could you kindly bring to Mayor Harp's attention the petition and outcry of New Haven taxpayers? 500 plus signatures in less than a week, 200 comments from people. Harry, you just got rid of the screen there. I'm trying to read it. Thanks. 500 plus, thank you. 500 plus signatures in less than a week, 200 comments from people who are frustrated, and some who have to move from their homes due to the massive tax increase after evaluations. Thanks for the question, Jake. So that is what I was leading up to. For people who are really upset about this tax increase, this veto issue tonight became sort of something that you could say, here's action.
Yeah, I understand that, and I understand them being upset about it. As I said before, look, I would not have recommended raising taxes if we didn't have to do it. One of the things that we've seen is that the amount of our state aid has gone down. We've projected our building permits, they've gone down, so that our revenue has gone down.
Why did building permits go down? Did we have a blip for a year because of Yale's building or the new residential colleges and stuff?
I think that I wouldn't blame them. I think that there were other developers.
Not blame, I mean, was there an unusually busy year?
I think that there have been unusually busy years in that we projected that there would be more. There were a number of apartment developers that we thought would be online during this year, and so they may actually get the building permit within the first quarter of next year, but it meant that we didn't get the revenue. The other thing that we've seen happen over the past 2 years is that we've lost state revenue. Just in this year alone, we lost, and this was after we were into the second quarter of the fiscal year, we lost $9.6 million, which is significant. There was no way that we could make it up. The budget itself only went up 1.5%, but the revenues have gone down. We had no other place to go. We only have one tool really, and that is the property tax. We've been trying as mayors across the state to try to get other tools to raise revenue, but we just don't have any. It's my sense that we can't afford, we're still in an urban area, we can't afford to reduce our police department, and we are required by our current agreements in fire to have minimum manning, so that if we reduce them, we would end up paying even more overtime, which is a little out of control now because of the minimum manning that is in those contracts.
Changed?
Well, when we renegotiate those contracts, yes. And we haven't started to work on the fire contract yet because we're in the process of working on the police contract. And so I understand people being frustrated and upset, and I certainly don't want anyone to lose their home because we have gone up in our taxes. Unfortunately, in order to run the city, we just don't have a whole lot of places to go. Our biggest departments are on the city side, are police and fire. We're currently looking for about $20 million worth of savings in the New Haven public school budget, which is going to be really tough.
Let's go one by one of those. Janet Koch says a wow. Susan P. Vasicchio, Lori Martin, and Timothy Sean Sullivan are checking in. Thanks for watching, folks. So this is that time now. The rubber's meeting the road. We raised taxes. We lost state revenue. Things are going to have to be cut at the same time taxes were raised. And people are going to be upset on both ends.
Oh, absolutely.
So you have a meeting Wednesday night. There's going to be in Beaver Hills the people who want to fight the tax increase. And meanwhile, tonight you have Board of Ed. I hear there might be teaching positions cut because we lost a lot of money for schools. That budget's been cut.
Well, I think that people need to understand. I just learned about it, that 1,100 positions were cut on Friday.
Where?
In the throughout the schools. They weren't teaching positions, but they were part-time positions and in some of the special fund positions. And and that's disturbing. That's $12 million out of our local economy.
Wow. And that's out of 1,100 positions out of how many?
I think they have about 4,000 positions.
Really? So when we say we have 5,000 city employees, does that include education?
Well, I think we have about 6, so yeah.
And is schools, like all but 2,000 are schools?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we only have about 2,000.
I always thought we had 5,000 city employees. I don't know where I had that number.
Okay, all right.
I'm not good with numbers. No, I'm not good with numbers.
Well,
so,
we'll check on them.
But 1,100 positions. The other thing that happens, I remember this from the Stefano administration, that once you start eliminating positions, people bump down. So my favorite example was in 1981, I did a story at The Advocate about the Spanish-speaking librarian got bumped by someone who didn't speak Spanish. So we had a Spanish-speaking librarian who didn't speak Spanish because of union rules. I have a sense, I'm already hearing, like, within 2 minutes on the sidewalk today, I ran into 2 separate people who were talking about the confusion over these Board of Ed cuts, that you don't know who's going to be bumped where. And I don't know how you manage that. That's a hard one.
It's a hard one, and it's very difficult. And I think that right now it's grant positions, and some of these grant positions are in the unions, but many of them are not. And then it's part-time positions, and they typically are not in the unions.
And I guess that just means we're gonna be doing less as a government. Like, I don't know if one of the programs I know, grant positions, is Spanish-speaking, like adult ed for Spanish, English second language. I'm wondering if we're just going to decide we're not doing some stuff and we're going to stick with our core.
Well, I'm hoping not. I'm hoping we can find other ways to reduce our costs.
For 1,100 people?
I know. Well, I hope that we don't have to do 1,100 people.
Oh, really? So you're hoping still we don't have to do that?
In my discussions with the superintendent, she had indicated that they're going to do job descriptions for some of these programs, work with the principals, figure out how many people they actually need, and some will be rehired.
Gotcha. Jake Newell says maybe a good conversation would be with the mayor and Mohit Agrawal from FRAC, the Financial Review Accountability Committee, which I did not say right, but I got the acronym right.
FRAC, yeah.
He's an interesting guy, and he makes everything not personal. Did you ever notice that? Like, he says some pretty tough feedback about your budget. He says it's not really in balance. Said we have a $30 million structural deficit that says deal with. But he says he feels like you're trying to deal with it and that there aren't easy solutions. He thinks that the tax rate would have had to go up 20%
Right.
to really meet our costs. Is he wrong?
No. No, I think that one of the problems that we have, we don't know from year to year how much we're going to be getting from the state of Connecticut. And if we got everything that the payment in lieu of taxes was supposed to get us for colleges and hospitals, then we wouldn't have that problem. But we have it because of we don't know. We don't know from one year to the next how much we're going to get. And then when we find out, oftentimes it's too late.
DFA New Haven is tweeting Mayor Harp on WNHHLP 1100 exclamation point petitions have been cut by the Board of Ed. But you're saying it might not be permanent.
Might not be permanent. These people typically don't work in the summer, so we're hoping we can get that worked out.
All right. And I hope that we're working it out on Mayor Monday. WNHHFM 103.5, live streamed at newhavenpin.org. Thanks, people, for checking in. Aaron Good writes in, we're going to have to get a little, pay attention. Aaron Good has a question. Has the mayor tried the new Hartford line? And does she think it will help out the economy in New Haven? Thank you, Aaron, for your question.
Yes, I have. I had an opportunity to ride on the maiden voyage of the Hartford line. And the interesting thing about scheduling is that there's more earlier and more often coming into New Haven than actually going from New Haven to Hartford. So I think it will absolutely help build the economy in New Haven.
Meaning Hartford people come here to work.
Yes.
Are we going to try to get some more, why doesn't it go both ways? Why can't we get as many trains to Hartford in the morning so people can commute there?
Well, I think that we will ultimately. They started out looking at, I guess, the need for people to come into New Haven.
Gotcha. Interesting. So you're saying that kind of says something about our economy versus Hartford's.
Yeah, I think it does.
And then they're building that new building that I've just mentioned a lot last week. Joe, the son of the Yale Child Study guy, Cohen, who's building the 6-story place right on the parking lot of a block, catty corner from the State Street station. So I think that's one of the lures. And they just right behind it have a new performance space, a large one, on the second floor of the Grove called the, I forget the name of it. Anyway, we have a story this morning about Brian Slattery. They apparently had a great first concert with a musician from Mali.
Oh, okay.
Afrobeat, well-known guy. Apparently it was rocking. So, and people can move in there. They're only going to have to roll out of bed to go see something fun right behind them. Thank you for your question, Aaron Good. Let's get in the weeds a little bit about the police department. So there's one of the great budget dilemmas of all time. Suburban departments are poaching our officers bad because we just can't keep up with the pay and the benefits. $30,000 I'm hearing you get paid more if you instantly go to another department. Plus you get much better health and medical. Meanwhile, we feel that our medical and health benefits we gave to cops because we wanted to keep them, even though it's so much less in those places to be competitive, we can't even necessarily afford those. And you're saying you feel we can't really cut the force dramatically. So where does that leave us?
Oh, I think that we're just trying to as best we can balance. One of the things for people who want to be real police officers and have a real experience serving the public, the best place to do that is in New Haven. And so that's why so many people are not seduced by the dollars that other places have.
No, you're laughing, but I think that's a very serious statement.
No,
Chief Campbell said that to me. He said, look, we are going to lose some people because of that. They're going to say, I'm not going to be in as much danger in Milford, although I've been hearing some things about Milford, but we won't talk about that. So, and he says, we're going to get the people who really want to be here and excited about the bigger challenges and the creative things you do and the kind of exciting work you do, that it's a good department. So that's definitely one strategy. Class of 2015, my last count, 11 people are already gone. They became cadets in 2015. They graduated, and now they have left the force, most of them seduced by other departments, including a cop of the week, Tiffany Ortiz, who was a really terrific cop who grew up here. Any thoughts about what's up? Now we're negotiating a new contract. How are we dealing with that issue? Is it going to arbitration, or what's the?
Well, one of the things that we're hoping is that we could get the towns to pay more. It costs us about $65,000 to train these cadets and for their first year, and our we're hoping that we can get more.
What do we get now? 4,000 or something?
4,000 if we get that.
And it's only if it's in the first 2 years, right?
Right.
I've been noticing a lot of these people are going in the third year, but also the towns are happy to pay it.
No, and some of the towns were happy to pay it. As a matter of fact, I was talking to an officer, and they were saying the last time that New Haven laid off police officers, and they, were protesting downtown, that towns were on the sidelines and, tapping on people's shoulders saying, if you want.
That was an amazing day.
Yeah.
We got live video still up there that Stefano grimly ushering Lou Cavalier's father, the union president, in. They blocked the street. Like the cops were blocking the street and traffic. I mean, that was kind of deep. So I'm hearing that the estimates in the department, right or wrong, is that 30 cops are going to be retiring this week because it's the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah, actually, the first security officer that worked with me is retiring, Sergeant Scott.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And so, yes, they are. They
And
come
then
in.
another
They
20
come
in
in.
December. I'm hearing.
They come in at when we have big classes that come in. Say we had 3 classes the first year that I became mayor. All of those people will be eligible to retire at the same time. We're hoping that people don't, but by and large, you're eligible in 20 years to retire.
And so if 30 go now and 20, and it might not be that many in December, we're already down. We have 490 budgeted positions. 430 are filled. That could get us below 400. But we have 2 classes coming, but one of the classes has just been delayed because of problems with background investigations being fabricated. Is it possible we won't go all the way back up to 490? My understanding is Bridgeport has under 300 cops, but Bridgeport is not as safe as we are.
Well, and they don't walk the beat in Bridgeport. They sort of use the old-fashioned policing of cars. And, I think for us, the importance of community-based policing, having the relationship with the police officers and the people in the community is important enough to have enough bodies to do that. You can't do it when you've reduced your number to a certain point. You just don't have the people to interact with our communities. And I think that's really an important distinction that we as New Haven have, and I think it's worth fighting for and worth paying for.
All right. And then there were also one idea I had was, I think it might make absolutely no sense because I'm not in government, so I can just throw out these ideas. So 2 years ago, I think it was, we did our budget. And then after we did our budget, the state said, hey, we have a budget crisis, so we're no longer going to pay to run the pre-detention lockup at One Union Avenue. You got to pay $1 million more.
Right.
What if we said, screw you? What if we said we're going to stop detaining we're just not going to hold people unless they're really a threat of violence to the community, in which case, if it's working hours, we'll bring them right to the Whaley Avenue lockup that you run or the courthouse lockup. And if it's overnight and we're booking them till 3 in the morning, maybe we'll have an officer from A shift sit in the car until they open up the courthouse. Costs us a lot less than running a lockup. Do you think that kind of hardball might save us a little money?
I don't know. I've never thought of that before, Paul. I have to take a look at
See,
it.
I spend all my days wondering if I'm in the position of the people I write about. And you have all sorts of unrealistic ideas. And you imagine, can you come in like Rambo and say, state, you stuck it to us, we'll stick it right back to you.
Well, I
Not
think,
always the best way to have a relationship with the government agency you want to have fund you.
I know. We do need at least 40% of our budget comes from them, if not more. Yeah.
So I just want to do a shout out to the police department because I'm often speak out when I feel I've handled things wrong. There were 2 tough situations that faced the police department last 2 weeks, and in any large organization you have these kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
So you do have almost 400. You have over 400 people working there, and there were 2 people doing background investigations of upcoming cops, and they admitted that they fabricated the backgrounds. And the way they found out was that one of the rejected applicants was in an executive session with police commission saying, I don't think this is accurate that you did these interviews with people. And they said, why? Because this person, neighbor you say you spoke to, is dead, so you couldn't have really interviewed him. So it turned out, and one of them I spoke to admitted it. Chris Ramirez gave me an interview about how, he thought he was going to get back to it after vacation, all this kind of stuff. I felt the department, they came out and immediately stopped this class that was going to start today. There was going to be a new cadet class. They said, we're going to redo all these background investigations. And obviously people who have political agendas want to make this bigger and say this is systemic throughout the department. It's this person's fault that will knock him off. We'll try to get my friend in the academy. I haven't seen any evidence. I'm curious about your take that this is something deeper. But Chief Campbell said we're going to make sure. He's actually asked even the state's attorney and the U.S. attorney to see if there are criminal charges that should be put in. He's reviewing. He brought in new people to review every file from an applicant, and he went and did a press conference and said, "I'm owning this, and this is not okay. And here's what we're doing to try to make it right." Any thoughts on how this? Other people said, "Why are you coming out with the press conference before you've even finished your investigation?"
Well, I think that he felt very strongly in my discussions with him. He was very embarrassed by this and wanted to make sure that people understood that the police was going to ride its ship. The police department was going to ride its ship, and that he was captain. He was going to ride his ship. And I think that that's right. I absolutely supported his decision to hold off on seating this class until another investigation was done.
Might that save you a little money on the first class?
Well, it might, and it actually is
Small change.
Small change. Instead of starting it in this fiscal year, we're starting it in next.
That's how the ledger's written out. Yeah.
So that helps, and also, it also underscores how important every step of this process is. In spite of the fact that other people are trying to pick off our police officers, these are highly competitive jobs, and they're good jobs, even though they don't pay as well as some of these other towns do. They're very good jobs for people, and they're very competitive. And so it's only right that we assure that we have a fair, blemish-free process.
And there's no question this is very important. Background checks have to be. On the flip side, I don't think there's been any evidence that this is a cancer in the department. Any organization has people who do stuff like this. I would just like when something like a Watergate break-in happens, which is serious, but what really brought down Richard Nixon was the cover-up.
Right.
The flip side is when something's not huge, how you handle it can kind of be a star. I mean, it's sort of that not gold star, but I mean, I think it's how you handle it that's more important, given that you're always going to have this kind of stuff. But what do you think about that? That's me preaching.
Well, no, I think that you're absolutely right. Look, I don't even think, I know that the chief is looking into whether or not any of the behavior was criminal. I think that it was just as the gentleman that you interviewed said, you want to go on vacation. And they told him he had to have it.
And I thought I was going to get back when I was going to do it.
Yeah. And I don't see criminal intent there. And I'm sure the same is true of the others.
What I meant is I'm not seeing a problem with supervisors. I'm not seeing a problem with who hired whom. I'm not seeing a problem with, because he even said to me, I wasn't pressured to do it. Because that's one question I asked him. Were they leaning on you? Was this the environment? I'm not seeing any evidence of a rot.
I don't think there is either. I never thought that there was that. And the only thing that folks could have said, and all of the, they wrote good reviews for everybody. So,
right. Nobody was stopped from becoming a cop because of this.
Right, because of that. And so I don't think that there was an intent to do this. I really think that there were two people that were just trying to do things quick and in a hurry, and they cut corners and they got caught.
And just quickly, I thought that a couple weeks ago we had a video we published of a man being arrested on the green when he was loudly objecting how police are doing their jobs. Big debate, First Amendment, all that kind of stuff. What really impressed me was when that broke out and there was a protest about it, the police department in under 24 hours got me that body cam video so we could all talk about it, even though it didn't necessarily look good for the cops. And I just think that was above and beyond, because I'm having trouble with another police department in Yale about getting body cam video. It's a big question in the country now. If they're going to have this promise of keeping cops accountable, including showing when they don't do something wrong, will departments really make it available quickly enough, or are they going to hide behind continuing investigation? I thought they did a great job getting that to me. I thought, and so the whole city can watch it, and I just want to give them a little kudos for that. Good job on your administration. What did you think of that incident?
Well, I think most of us don't look at these events with police eyes, and I think that so it was a little confusing to me, but I think that keeping a perimeter on a crime scene is really important. And then when you have people sort of heckling, is what the police officers, I thought that they handled themselves reasonably well given all of that.
Okay. And there were two sides to that.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. But I don't bring you on here to argue with you. I think the department handled it very well.
Yeah.
The the video, and they're looking into it. Joanne Souza writes in. You knew this one was coming. Why is the mayor giving raises to 37 people? And raise the taxes for the New Haven community. In 3 years, New Haven taxes have increased 30%. This is unacceptable. 30%.
And you know what? I tried to run the numbers, and in order to raise the mill rate one time with the people I gave raises to, there would have had to have been 26 times the number of people. These were 37 people. Their raises amounted to less than $250,000. Just the week before, the Board of Aldermen gave 390 people the exact same raise. I don't hear anyone complaining about that. So why shouldn't their bosses, who are now going to be making less than the people they gave the 390, get the same raise that the managers got?
And some of those people didn't get raises in 4 years, right?
Most all of them that worked for me hadn't had a raise in 4.5 years.
And Joanna, thank you for the question. I don't get the point about taxes increasing 30%.
Yeah, they haven't.
11% in 3 years, right?
Well, it would be 11%, yeah.
Unless Joanna lives in East Rock, where because of revaluation, where taxes stayed the same citywide, some neighborhoods went up and others down because of property values. Unless there's something else. And Joanna, do write back. We have a couple more minutes if you want to weigh in on that. And thank you very much for the question. I think one criticism I heard was the optics, Mayor Harp, that at the time you're raising taxes isn't the time to give a raise.
Well, like a week before, the Local 3144, very similar, settled, and they got their raise. And so so if it was okay for 390 people, why wasn't it okay for 37?
All right. And is it okay to have people come have coffee in the library?
Yes.
Why is that?
Because we want people to be relaxed and to understand that this is a place where they can come, have their coffee. They can get free Wi-Fi. They can also get access to some of the other kinds of things that they may be working on. Where we have, the multiple degree printers there that people can use, and all kinds of technical equipment.
So will they be able to get coffee there?
Yes.
When's that?
G Cafe. I don't know. We're going to be having
It's called Ives Squared. On Wednesday, I heard a little birdie told me that you're going to be at the main library branch on Wednesday.
Right.
And then you're opening this new cafe, hangout at the library called Ives Squared.
Right. And
you come and get a nosh, you come and eat, just like at your Barnes & Noble, and you're also doing everything else you talk about at the library.
Right. And I think it's gonna make more people want to come and hang out. Yeah.
I feel that one of the great success stories in New Haven has been our library. More people use it than ever, and it's changed with the times. You get the books the way you always did. You get all the stuff online. It's a community center, not just in the main branch and the other branches, and they've always figured out how to redefine a library while still having its historic role. And I think that's been the secret to success. And I think Ives Squared is, I'm jumping the gun a little here because it's 2 days from now, but I think that's part of that process.
And we have a great leader over there.
Martha Brogan, amazing.
First female city librarian.
Really?
And yes. And she has
if
done
there's
a
any
phenomenal
job historically we've heard that like women had was library, right?
But not in New Haven.
Not the boss. Yeah, not the boss. Because the branch librarians, you got Charlotte Graff in Westville, you got Diane Brown.
Yeah.
Kamari Cooper says hi. Hi, Kamari. And also this week, is there going to be Farnham Courts is open. You rebuilt Farnham Courts. It's beautiful. Is there some kind of event?
I think there will be. I'm not sure where it is, but there will be soon.
And anything else coming up this week you should know about? Just between us, we won't reveal.
Not that I can think of. Certainly we have the Board of Education meeting tonight.
So it's going to be stormy.
Yeah, it might be raining in there.
So basically, we all gotta keep our heads, keep calm. We got some tough decisions in the coming week, folks. Major layoffs. We don't know what number in the Board of Ed. We got this veto question tonight. But in the end, we're still going to be one community.
We are.
Going to hang together, respect each other.
Oh, that's what's coming up. We're going to have the initiation of one city.
That's right. Thursday. Yes. I forgot. Thursday of all the management teams in town.
Mm-hmm.
Doing 60 events in 60 days in each of their neighborhoods.
Right.
Opening event Thursday afternoon at the Field House at Hill House High School. It's going to be a great summer.
It will be, because we're a great city and we are that one city. And I'm thrilled to be the mayor of such a beautiful city with such beautiful people.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on Mayor Monday, as always. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Thanks for all the questions and comments, folks. That's what keeps us interesting. Joanna Souza says, please discuss. This is important in the community. We will continue discussing every week. And Joanna, stick with us and keep your questions coming. Thanks to Gateway Community College and Bertram Moses, PC, for providing financial support for today's program. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience, performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD A Plea for Peace. Now, we know what it's like to be free, but Mayor Harp, what should we do about it?
Got to book our flight.
All right, everyone, listen to your mayor, Tony Harp, and book your flight with us all day and all night long here at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.